So this is interesting, especially considering that we have so much like religious motifs and religious iconography involving Elaine and Azriel at the very least. So Tamlin having conservative religious trauma is an interesting interpretation to take the character in. This is doubly interesting considering that Tamlin's sexuality, a lot of it is wired around calumny and being imbued with the holy horny fucking magic in order for him to go forth and holy horny fuck some random person that the calumny magic picks out for him. And that makes sense for Akatar 1 because Akatar 1 we were supposedly getting this kind of very fey, amoral sexuality. Like, oh, like this dude is actively Feyre's love interest, but he's going to get possessed with the holy horny fucking magic and Feyre needs to be sequestered lest Tamlin mount her like a stallion or some shit. But then we kind of come back to like the human aspect of things where Feyre and Rhysand, like they have this like relationship. Rhysand does not seem beholden to any sort of holy horny fucking magic of either arcane or divine value. Like there's like, it's not so much of an issue for them. And then Nesta and Cassian continue the trend of a more human sexuality where I think there could have been like room for kind of a very fey like sexuality happening with Nessie in particular because this was such a sexual pairing. We also had the added context of Cassian being Illyrian, and we know that the Illyrians have a very different culture than the High Fae. So it makes sense that if the Illyrians are very ritualistic about violence and about training their warriors, it makes sense that they're pretty ritualistic about sex as well. Like there could have Illyria could have had their own Calumny. And that would even explain why the Illyrians don't like Rhysand on like a racial level, because as he is High Fae, even him being a little bit High Fae means he can't partake as the High Lord in the Illyrian version of Calumny, which doesn't exist. Like it's an idea that could have happened, but Rhysand can't participate in it, which is why the Illyrians don't like him. And then Cassian would have been foiled with Lucian or maybe Eris, in that maybe because Lucian has had to stand in for Tamlin for Calumny before, during like Akamath when Feyre and Rhysand are having their icky paint sex. Lucian is doing Calumny and then he ends up having that horrible experience with Ianthe. Cassian could have a situation like that where he wants Nesta, but he also needs to be imbued with the holy horny fucking magic of Calumny, specifically Illyrian Calumny, specifically because Rhysand can't do it because he's half High Fae. Like, make these racial delineations matter. And then that could also kind of inform what Azriel is feeling about his own culture, because the idea of him being in love with Elaine, but also kind of beholden to these Illyrian sexual mores, could also be like anathema to him. That could be a reason why he has such internalized racism. And why am I coming up with cooler motifs about the Illyrians than the actual like canon has? Like, why is this happening? Like, I swear on my life, I'm writing a fanfic and now I want to write like an Elriel fanfic where this is a factor. Like, this video was supposed to be about conservative trauma and the Spring Court, and now I am mad about Illyrian rights that aren't in the book. Like, so Tamlin, we're back to Tamlin. I do think that, especially because I've learned recently that Sarah is very religious, or like her religion kind of influences her writing. I feel like this could have been a really interesting direction to go, but it depends on how deconstructionist she's willing to get with it, which, to be fair, Azriel has some really deconstructionist iconography around him. So Tamlin also having religious trauma matches with the deconstructionist and personal choice vibes that I get from Elriel. So you know what? I agree with you. I feel like this could be a cool interpretation of the Tamlin character, but also I feel like you could take this even further to make the Illyrians cooler, to make the other courts that we don't see a lot cooler and more interesting. Like, Sarah!